Monster Hunter Broken Soul Brain, what is this? Rigid thinking? It's a whole video about me. Mental gymnastics. This is crazy, guys. Absolutely crazy. What is this?
Hello again, I am Blunty, and today I'm mixing video games with psychological disorders with throwing shade at
Uh-oh.
someone way more popular than I am. So this should go very well and be a completely fine video which doesn't make anyone type extra heavily on their keyboard.
Last 5 or 10.
It's about rigid thinking. And it's something that once I explain it to you in the manner I'm going to explain it to you today, you're going to see a lot, especially given how social media works these days. And you might even see it in yourself. And that would be a good thing because it'll help you become a better person, both in your own view of yourself.
And this is about me becoming a better person.
How you interact with people, hopefully in a positive way. Now, in videos that cover topics like this, I often use myself and my own experiences as a reference point, as a touchstone. Today, though, I happen to come across an example I think it will be just superb, perfect, ideal for this discussion. So, our cozy, familiar frame of reference is a video about Monster Hunter. I've been watching a lot of videos about Monster Hunter again because, you know, this week Capcom have started ramping up the next hype train for their upcoming Monster Hunter Wilds title as we head into Gamescom, and we're all very excited about it because for the first time ever there'll be a public demo at Gamescom soon afterwards. In any case, the YouTube machine mind shoved an Asmongold video into my feed. As it does, because I do often dip into his content from time to time, and of course because it's about Monster Hunter and I'm watching a lot of Monster Hunter. That's how the algorithm works. It's not a new video. It's from about 5 months back after Asmongold had his very first Monster Hunter experience when he jumped onto the hashtag Return to World bandwagon and tried the series out for himself for the first time and wound up loving it.
It was a great game.
He was very excited about Wilds as well. Now, there's an end game boss in Monster Hunter World called Eletrion. Fairly heavily argued about in fandom, actually, for various reasons. And in fact, the Asmongold video I'm pulling this from is him reacting to someone else's reaction about the controversy.
This is the worst.
And then moved on to talking about people's reactions to his reaction to Eletrion directly.
Yeah, sure.
Now, we don't need to dig into any of that, really, but basically, all you need to know is Eletrion is a skill check, a gear check, and a DPS check monster all in one. It's a very late-game monster, and it's meant to sort of really push you as a hunter. It's a very difficult fight and needs a lot of knowledge and preparation before you even start learning the fight properly.
He is a motherfucker.
You have to get the right stuff in order to survive long enough to learn the fight to then eventually beat him.
Right.
And one of those things is bring a weapon with an appropriate elemental effect
Oh
on
my
it.
fucking god. Oh my I know what this is going to be. Oh my god. All right.
Here we come to Asmongold. Actually watched him take on Eletrion and watched him while he read out the entire tutorial message, which he then also ignored or just misunderstood a lot of what it told him, and he also ignored the actual gameplay, what that was telling him visually, and he ignored what the NPCs in the game were saying to him, and he ignored his own chat.
That's right.
It was frustrating.
Well, it's very easy to explain why. If you have, think about that amount of like sensory input, right? Like you're having the game tell you something, you're playing something, you're on camera, you're trying to play a game, you're reading your chat. Like, I'm sorry, like I straight up go into like omega sensory overload dealing with all of that stuff at the same time. That's why, like, for example, like I played Metal Gear Rising. The first day that I played that game, I'm pretty sure you could take a World War II veteran that's never even seen a video game in their life and fucking have them play the game and they'd do a better job than I did. The second day happens, I go back and did I die? I think I died once on a boss. Other than that, I never died. Because I just simply do not process information while I'm streaming. I can't learn while streaming. Because there's just too many different conversations and things going through my head. I can't do it. Yeah, it's a mental overload. Yeah. Straight up.
Understandably, this frustrated a lot of people.
Can't do it.
Particularly experienced players who were watching him play and trying to help him.
So there was a tweet. Here's the problem with this, is that this is something he might not understand, is that there is no verifiable difference with a person trying to, quote, help me and a person who is just trying to give me bad information. Like in a chat stream, everybody is the exact same. Like, it's not like one person has a badge that says, I have 5,000 hours in Monster Hunter. I know what I'm talking about. So, like, I don't have a way to distinguish good feedback and bad feedback. And also, keep in mind, the last time I tried to distinguish good feedback and bad feedback, I used a Firekeeper soul. Remember that? That was made, I guess, did this person block me? Oh no, I think I've been blocked by this individual. I've been blocked. But they made a tweet complaining about me playing Monster Hunter the wrong way. And so this is what this has 18,000 likes. There's a lot of people that are mad because I was not playing the game the way that they thought that I should be playing the game. Reminds me of whenever Asmongold got to Ultraeon, he reads the entire tutorial out loud, went into the quest, spends almost 2 hours without even knowing he's doing 0 elemental damage because he has Dragon Blight, even though the handler keeps yelling, you have Dragon Blight. Because people were criticizing me because I was using Blast Blight damage.
See, the issue here is you need, and I mean need, it's not optional outside of some very weird, highly coordinated, specialized stats and cheese, but you need to use elemental weapons to do this fight. And Asmongold was using a Blast Blight weapon. One of my personal favorite choices of weapons, actually. I love Blast Blight. But it's not an elemental weapon. Blast.
All right. So, the reason why I thought that it was a blast weapon and blast was an element is because it says element blast. It says it right there. Here. Let's go ahead. We're going to zoom in. So, it says right there. See this? Because if you look at right here, element. Because the affinity is 0%, the sharpness is this, the attack is this. So this would mean that the element is what this is. So, that's the reason why I thought that. The entire argument about it was that I was stupid for not knowing this intuitively. It's not about whether it is or is not an element. It's about whether the element is, whether it is a stupid mistake to not know that, or whether it is good design. It is not good design. It is misleading. It's clearly misleading. Now, I was misled, but what I'm saying is that the thought process that I used to get misled was sound. This doesn't mean that blast is an element. It just simply means that blast is is denoted as an element by the game. I would have thought the same, yes. So yeah, all the people saying I was stupid for that are stupid. This is a logical mistake any person would make because the game tells you this. It's bad game design to include that. It is. It's badly done. The menus in the game are garbage. They're bad. It doesn't help that other weapons have element none. Exactly. Yes. I don't see how this is even a conversation.
This is a status effect, not an elemental effect. What we're about to see next is Asmongold methodically and logically explaining why he was making the choices he made.
Yes.
And why he is not the one being dumb, and why the game is the problem here.
It is. It is. The game is the problem. It absolutely is. It's misleading. It's not even a question. Logically, blast damage should be an element. It should be. Because blasts are created through compression and through pressure.
Yeah.
And they create combustion. And combustion is through fire, and fire is an element. Half of this is wrong, but the other component is that whenever a blast blight effect goes off, it looks like a fire explosion. It does. It looks like there's a fire that comes out of it. So yeah.
All of that seems logical, right? Like perfectly logical.
Yeah, sure.
Who can argue that fire isn't an elemental force? I mean, except for anyone who has taken a high school science class where we learned that fire is nothing but a mixture of hot gases and the result of a chemical reaction.
Well, under that logic, then water isn't either.
But, you know, classically speaking, most people will also accept you calling fire an element, you know, as in the elements, fire, water, air, and earth.
Yeah.
It's not scientific.
This is the way all the games are. And also, like, sometimes you have fire and you have, like, flame resist rather than fire resist, or you have frost resist rather than, like, water resist or cold resist. But fundamentally, he's right. That, like, in almost all games, there's, like, 4 core elements, and then usually there's, like, a couple of extra elements as well. Things like, for example, chaos damage, or, you know, dragon damage, or something like that, like in Pokemon. Like dark element, yeah, holy, or, you know, void damage, yeah, exactly. But these are all fundamentally elements.
But it is common enough bit of classical thinking that most people will accept it without thinking twice.
Of course.
And of course, in video games like Monster Hunter, they have their own internal logical underpinnings for the logic of their fictionalized world and how things work in that world. So yeah, fire is an element here, no argument. So is ice. But so is water. But water is a separate element from ice, despite being the exact same substance, just at a different temperature. Also, thunder is an element in the game. Even though in the game it means electricity and not the sound that lightning makes that we call thunder.
But yeah, of course. What's the problem with that? Yeah, sure. True.
Thunder and lightning are separate things. They're linked causality-wise, but they're not the same. Thunder is not electricity. Is in Monster Hunter, though. So already we're on shaky logical structure. But sure, fire, elemental.
Well, it's not shaky at all. The game calls it an element. It's not even a debate. If you look at the weapon says that it's an element. Of course people are going to think that it's an element, because the game tells you that. Of course. It's not, what are we talking about? It's a status effect. I know that, but it's being called an element. I understand the difference, and I beat Alatreon later on, because I then learned the difference. But that difference is not explained in game in a good way. And that's why I was getting mad at people. I wasn't really getting mad at people about, like, for example, whether it should be or not. That doesn't really matter a whole lot. I think it does actually matter, and it's misleading. But the main thing that I was arguing with people about was that this is a bad form of design. It's a bad form of explaining mechanics. It's on the player to figure it out. Yeah, but that's not really a good thing, though, is it? I mean, I feel like it's not a good thing. Yeah, poison, sleep, blast, paralyze should be listed as status effect on weapon and not element. Yeah, absolutely. He's not saying that thunder isn't a lightning element. He's saying that the game has shaky logic, not you. Yeah, it's very unintuitive. Yeah, and so, like, I'll watch a little bit more. I'll go to the end.
So let's keep going with his thought process from that step.
Okay. Also, whenever I look at a blast blight explosion, it is identical to fire. If you ask somebody, what element is this? 100 people out of 100 people would tell you that it is fire. There is no logical reason that blast blight would not be an elemental effect that would contribute to the damage taken for Altreon's bar to reduce the eschaton damage. Under every single logical assumption that is known to physics, it would.
Yes. Yep. He's right.
To be fair, also, Alatreon isn't real, so it's hard to say. But, yeah, I think that's true.
It sure looks like fire when enough blast blight is built up to trigger the explosion effect, doesn't it? Unmistakably.
Literally, the whole point of the game is to grind and figure out how things work, and you just happen to have to hunt monsters. No, I disagree with that entirely. I think that when a game misleads you and a game explains something in a way that's bad, then that's a problem with the game. I have no problem with the game having, like, not everything needs to be over-explained to a million degrees, but when you call something an element, but it doesn't function as an elemental weapon, you shouldn't be surprised when players get confused by that. It is a needless and unnecessary complication, and if it said status damage instead of element, this would be I think that we can all agree that this would be a universal positive improvement on the game. It would just instantly make the game better. That's all I'm saying.
Of 100 people, that's fire.
Yeah.
But that's another difference between elemental effects and status effects in this game, by the way, that Asmon doesn't seem to understand. Status builds up over multiple hits and then triggers an effect, like an explosion with blast.
But the effect that it's triggered doesn't necessarily mean that it's not elemental. And the argument here was that the elemental effect that was triggered was elemental. That's because it looks like it's elemental. And it says that it's elemental in the game. It literally says it. You look at the weapon, it says it's elemental.
Sleep, or poison, or paralysis.
Yeah.
While elemental damage is just that, a directly applied damage modifier. So if a monster happens to be weak to ice, and you hit it with an ice elemental weapon, it takes more extra damage directly. But it never builds up enough ice damage to become like frozen or something. That's a status, not an element.
Well, I don't think that it's necessary. Is it explained in the game that status effects, the proc of a status effect is different? Because NPCs have different weaknesses to different status effects, right? Like some NPCs take more damage from blast versus other NPCs taking more damage from blast? Yeah, they do. So status effects function as elements. They function the exact same. It's just that the way that they're applied is different. No? What's the difference? No, they don't. How are they different? Build up versus hit? So then the way they're applied is different, like what I said. Yeah, no. Elements is immediate damage. Element is a damage type. Status effect is like an Elden Ring. I'm not... What? So they are different? Well, yeah. But they function as the same thing. They absolutely do. So basically, if you have an elemental weapon, this is a component of your damage that does some effect, and that effect has varying levels of effectiveness on the target that you're attacking. Naturally. So the status effect functions like an element, it's just the application of that functionality is different. Because it is a component that ultimately leads to more damage that has a varying level of effectiveness based off of what you're fighting. These are fundamentally the same thing. The chat's retarded. Yeah, this is the problem. And so, broke my whole brain. It's very annoying to have people. I'm just going to go at the end of this.
Awareness in particular, and trying to use better tools to deal with it when presented with it from either side of your little brick wall. That's the only way through this issue.
The game's misleading. It's misleading.
I still deal with it. I like to think I've gotten way better at dealing with it than I used to be. But it's still an issue. So, to Asmongold, on the chance that this crosses your path, please do accept this as constructive and coming from a place of personal empathy.
I don't view it as constructive at all. Not at all. The game is intentionally and purposely misleading. This is an objective fact. If you call something an element, you should expect people to think it's an element. Don't call it an element and make its application look like an element. And then that's it. Skip through the explanation. There's no explanation needed. It's called an element. Call it a status effect. You missed the point. There is no point.
Trying to attack you or tear you down or throw shade at you, I think I opened the video with. This is just an earnest discussion around this issue, and it just so happened that...
It's not. This is predicated on the idea that I can't understand that it's different. Of course I understand that it's different. It's a video game. Video games have fake logic. It's easy to understand that. That's how I beat Alatreon, as I understood it. It's easy. Yeah, I looked into it. I said, oh, wow, okay, this is different. My thinking was that it's stupid that it's different. It's a bad idea that it is different. Not necessarily that it isn't different, but I'm saying that the way that the game explains it and the way the game makes that distinction and how that is explained and viewed in game is misleading and bad. That's what I was saying. It's not about whether it is or isn't. It's unintuitive and misleading, yes.
I was thinking about making this video, and I came across your video at the same time.
Why is this an issue? Because people take my opinion on things seriously, and there's like a lot of people that are like, oh, Asmongold's really smart, which is like, I don't even really think that I'm particularly like super smart or anything like that. But people will say this on the internet. And a lot of people watch my videos and listen to my opinions on things. And because people listen to my opinions on things, there are other people that are mad about that because they say he's not smart, he's stupid. And we're going to call him stupid. We're going to say that he's stupid. And so that's the reason why it's happening. That's the difference. Because people are getting fixated on this because they think that they caught me, somebody who is perceived as being a smart person, at least on the internet by some people, right? I'm not saying that I am or not, but this is, you know, you see people talking about this, what they say. And they say, wow, he's not. Look at him. He's stupid. That's the reason why they push it. It's so stupid. It's so stupid people can feel like they're smart. I'm not saying this guy's stupid. I'm saying the people that made the tweet were.
The various sort of stages and bricks in this little wall I'm trying to build to.
Somebody says, if you think the Monster Hunter UI is unintuitive and misleading, then I'm glad you don't play. JRPGs, Japanese games love to have their hidden menus and systems. It's so overcomplicated, it's unreal. You're exactly right. Like, no, you're 100% right. Like the menus in the game are bad. Absolutely. Like, and I think this is very fair feedback and criticism, and I hope Monster Hunter Wilds has a better way of explaining it so people don't fall into the same mistake that I did. Because I think it's a reasonable mistake to make.
Enlighten people to what this kind of thinking does and how it happens and stuff like that. So I'm almost certain Asmongold will come to this in good faith if indeed it does cross his path. Can't say the same about his fandom though. Those people tend to be.
I don't think that the criticism really makes a lot of sense. I don't. I think that the way the game is designed is misleading, and it's intentionally hard to understand. And I hope Capcom doesn't make the next game like that either, because I think that a lot of people will make the same mistake that I would, and I think it's a reasonable mistake to make. And I wasn't necessarily arguing about whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. Like, if you want to have status damage, I think the idea of status damage is totally fine. Status damage is great. Okay, great. You want to have status damage? Go for it. That's awesome. But the problem is that when you have status damage and visually it looks the same, and even stated by the game it is the same as an element, that's the problem. The problem isn't the mechanics of the game. The problem is how the mechanics are communicated to the player. And the entire argument that I was having wasn't about whether it was a good idea to do this fundamentally. It was about whether it is a good idea to explain it in the way that the game explains it. And whether this was a reasonable mistake for a person to make. Because, and this is a big problem that I think a lot of games have, is that many people that play a game a lot advocate for improvements into the game that are in the same mindset of people that have played the game a lot. But if you take a step back and you look at it from a new player's perspective, they haven't put 1,000 hours into the game or 100 hours into the game. They haven't built up these like kind of expectations by reading things or looking things up. So what ends up happening is that you lead new players into traps unintentionally by not explaining things in a proper way. It's reasonable to make the mistake, yeah. The rigid part comes from the fact that you got more info and didn't change what you were doing. Well, the reason why I didn't change what I was doing is because I didn't... Oh, actually, wait, I did. Wait, that's not even true. I did. That's how I killed the boss. I used Frostcraft and I killed the boss. The only thing that I didn't change was my assumption that it was a bad decision. Eventually? Well, yeah, of course, eventually. Because what you have to keep in mind is that when I'm reading information from chat, a lot of that information is wrong. Like, people just type whatever. Like, I'll say, is this up or down? And, you know, let's say it's 70-30, people saying up and down, and they'll just say the wrong answer. People just say the wrong answer. So, like, I can't, and this is the issue, right, is that while I'm on stream, I can't verifiably determine whether a person in chat is qualified to give a good answer, and if that person is giving a good answer. Because I don't have a frame of reference to judge that information on. And that person has no inherent qualifications for it.
A little more erratic.
Yeah.
But then, so do most fandoms of very large content creators. They're not a monolith. And the loud ones are... So, thanks for watching. Hopefully this has been interesting, informative, useful.
Yeah, I mean, this guy makes videos about Monster Hunter. Big surprise that he's going to understand this. But what I'm saying is that I think a lot of new players will make the same mistake that I make. Because again, it's like you are making an argument, you're coming at this from being an expert into the game. And of course, as an expert in the game, there is a clear and obvious difference between these two things. All I'm saying is that for a new player, that difference is not communicated well. How would you compare Elden Ring's explanation of status effects like bleed to Monster Hunter's explanation of status effects like poison? I think it really depends. So, like, for example, I think that Dark Souls 1 with, like, the difference between poison and toxic is stupid. Because toxic doesn't necessarily, like, it's confusing. Because something being toxic is generally poison. I think that people usually use these as pretty much synonymous. But they fixed that with Elden Ring. Because Scarlet Rot is something that's totally different. Like, there's no... Scarlet Rot isn't real. So you can easily assume, like, basically... A problem that I think games sometimes have is that a player intuiting something using real-life logic comes to a conclusion that's wrong. I think that's bad game design in most cases.
I am Blunty. Thank you as always to the patrons scrolling up above there. And I will catch you next time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, toxic is meant to be more powerful. Poison to me? Yeah. But like toxic and poison, it's not explained in a way that makes sense. Bad localization? Yeah, I think there could be that. There's no toxic, it's still there. It's just called deadly poison. Yeah, I really am not sure. Right is unintuitive? Yeah. It really sucks that I like to go into games blind without looking anything up. I quickly realized that Monster Hunter World makes this very difficult. Yeah, like I think that every time that a person has to consult a, here's the video. Every time that a person has to consult a third-party tool in order, just a minute, my dad's calling me. Went to a convention. There's a huge group of Monster Hunter players playing on our 3DS. They also smell like fish and shitty deodorant. I think Monster Hunter is a great game. It has a great community. I don't think that people complaining about me saying that has anything to do with the community of Monster Hunter. It's just a handful of people on Twitter. It's fine. Like, yeah, they do that about... People do this about everything that I'm saying. It's not Monster Hunter community. Yeah, no, I think the community is great.